Great, and that way we'll have it for everybody. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. Super excited to have this last webinar of the year, and with two awesome speakers. We have both David Coates from Porter and Luis Gonzalez from Alteryx. They're going to take us. Actually, we had a session, I want to say a couple of weeks ago in Boston, where we did a live meetup. We did a roadshow of meetups in Tel Aviv, Boston, Denver, San Francisco, and David and Luis in Boston talked about how they build their programs, but more so how do they align with their organization's goals, revenue impact. And I thought it was super relevant for 2023. We got a lot of people from that session coming and saying, hey, can they share the slides? Can they share more about their model? And we thought, well, let's just make it a live webinar. So we have Q&A. You can just push questions in there. And while we run through those, we'll try to answer between their sessions. So feel free to ask as we go. Just kind of to start us off, I think the reason we have this webinar is maybe for everybody to kind of think of what's on your C-level's mind, right? It doesn't matter if it's a CMO, CEO, CRO, CFO, etc. But today, more than ever, people are asking, how are your programs influencing revenue? Okay, what's the impact of what you're doing for organization? And Luis will share a framework from Serious Decisions. I'm not going to kind of steal his thunder, but when you talk about impact, like there's different ways of different layers of impact. You know, just talking about the number of customer stories it's not yet an impact. So you need to kind of take it to another step, and we'll dive into that. So what you could, when you listen to this webinar in general, I think great thing is like for us to think as we go into 2023, things like, how can I show my program's impact on retention, for example, and you know, we've talked to companies like HubSpot and Adobe sharing statistics about how they measure if customers are, and you know, HubSpot has put this on public, so I can quote that, but HubSpot has said publicly that when they measured their programs, customer marketing programs, touch points versus customers not touched by the program, they've seen 55% higher retention. Okay, we have similar number from Adobe. Those are not public, so I won't share that. But we definitely see that when you have customer marketing touch points, programs, engagement, you see impact on retention. There's ways to measure. How do we influence growth, new revenue, right? So maybe expansion, upsell, cross-sell, and so on. How can programs influence adoption, right? For companies, super important now, because before you even reach retention and expansion, the first thing is adoption. Good adoption would then yield eventually, hopefully, expansion and upsell, and eventually retention. And the thing that is very close to heart for the reference element of it is, how are we improving sales efficiency? Can we show that we're closing deals faster with advocacy and references? Can we show that we're closing more deals versus without? Can we show that we're closing them at a higher amount? So things like that. And the last thing, which sometimes is very important for CMOs, and I'll share something from Salesforce. Salesforce just had their annual reports, and they said that they grew the same pace as Q3 last year, with just one small difference. It cost them double. So that's what we call customer acquisition cost. And then when Salesforce were asked, what are your predictions for next year? They didn't get predictions right now. So, and that's Salesforce. So a lot of marketing organizations are figuring out, how do we get the same growth, but not with double the customer acquisition costs, which is what we're seeing now. And I've heard other CMOs talk about customer acquisition costs going wild month over month and whatnot. So how are we, customer marketing programs, helping with customer acquisition costs? And you reduce customer acquisition costs when you do, for example, reviews and references and customer stories and so on. A little bit about base, and we'll move on. So, I mean, we're here to build the customer marketing and advocacy community and category, and really build what we call CLG, customer-led growth. We've rolled out CLG Campus. I kind of encourage you all to go and sign up. It's free, a lot of great free content there. Scott Wilder from the team is leading that. There's a lot of recorded sessions, podcasts, discussions and whatnot. So just a lot of resources available for you guys. Other things we're going to touch on later in January around, you know, how do you also kind of find a new job? How do you build your kind of profiles to find a new job? Or how do you grow in your own job? Talking about this impact as part of it. I'll skip this, here are some great customers that love to share that always, and just I'll say that BASE is here for solving, helping you identify your advocates and customers, what they can do, activating them, and then measuring the impact. With that, we'll basically move for David to share his thoughts on the topic.
Oops. Great. All right, let me just share my desktop. All right, let me know when you can see. Good, I'm seeing Gal nodding, so I'm going to move forward. As Gal mentioned, I am David Coates. Don't let the accent fool you. I am based just north of Boston. Been in the States 23 years. If you'd asked me back then, it's 21 years longer than I was thinking, but super happy to be here and nice to meet you all virtually. And as Gal mentioned, if you have questions, feel free to post them in chat or also the Q&A. So I'm going to take about 20 minutes and I'll hand over to Luis. Obviously, questions are more than welcome. And as Gal mentioned, about 3 weeks ago, we met in Boston and I kind of walked through the importance of being able to make the case for customer marketing, because I'm sure many of you out there are building programs, trying to get more resource. This is a time of year when everyone, it's like a bun fight, isn't it? Everyone has put their hats in for more resource. And I know many teams have 1 or 2 people, and that is a customer marketing organization. So in full transparency, I'm kind of in the same boat, right? There's 2 of us on Forder's customer marketing team. So what I wanted to do is walk you through a little bit about who we are. Also give you a way of how we're thinking about customer marketing in that broader landscape within the organization and where we're focused. And then as Gal mentioned, I've found, and Luis will definitely talk to this as well, there was a framework that Serious Decisions created about 5 years ago, which I found super helpful in making sure that we stay focused on the right things as we move from program to program to program. And I'll give you a specific example of that. And then I'm going to talk about what are my priorities as we look at 2023. Okay, so I'm sure many of you have never heard of Forter. That's okay. I'm hoping through the work we do in the market and moving forward, you will do. But just in context, founded in 2013 out of Israel, focus was really on how do we help retailers as they move online process as many good transactions as possible. Now, the challenge there is for many retailers, you don't have a credit card present. So it's very hard to verify people's identity. So we've worked over the last almost 10 years now to build out this global network where we can process transactions for leading retailers. I'll talk a little about who they are in a minute. And we AI machine learning. And so in 2021, we actually processed about $350 billion in transactions or monitored for those. We actually, as part of our global network, we have more than 1.3 billion consumers. And in the US, we know about 99% of folks as well. So everyone on this call, I'm sure that you have been shopping online. You may well have come across Forter's fraud prevention solution along the way, and hopefully it's been completely seamless and you don't even know we're there. So, sorry, wrong way. So, come on, there you go. So just in terms of who we are, this is some broad data, but we show up in apparel, footwear, hotel and online travel, cosmetics, anybody who's bought sneakers recently from the likes of Nike and Adidas online, you'll definitely have been in touch with our technology as well. So that's just a little bit about Forter. The other thing to know, and this is really important in terms of shaping our approach to customer marketing, being a young company, we are definitely a growth company. So where we're focused, majority of our effort right now is going and getting those net new logos to continue to build out these categories and to build out our market leadership. So yes, maintaining happy customers is super important, and that retention, cross-sell, upsell is really, really important too. I can tell you that we're in this great position of where we have about a 98% retention rate. So that isn't a focus of where we're spending our time. So I kind of bucket it into 2 different ways. So from me, it's really about how do we tell the story and fill the funnel. And what you'll see later on is I break it down into 2 areas. One is focused on building relationships. And then the second is also how do we support revenue growth? And so like any good marketer, obviously, everybody has a funnel, right? So if we think about a very simple funnel of top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel, top of the funnel, we really think about how do we build that awareness, especially for a company like Forte, that maybe isn't on everybody's radar like a Salesforce or somebody else would be, right? So part of it is using media and analyst relations to help build that initial groundswell of information that's out there about the industry and making sure that Forte is in the middle of that. Obviously, like any industry, there are a number of trade shows throughout the course of the year, MRC and MAG and various other things that focus on retail and have fraud elements to it. So we are definitely showing up there. And the way we're showing up there is really using our customers to tell the story of their journey and by extension, the value that Forte brings to that as well. So as we progress through the funnel, obviously, our aim is to be supporting the sellers as they're engaging with people that have kind of built an awareness of who Forte is. And now we're hoping to get to a point of where we're accelerating deals. So it gets into the product demos, the case studies, the videos, testimonials, the references and reviews. We know that data shows that for many buyers, they've already done research. About 70% of the decision has already been made before they even speak to a seller. So having reviews out there on G2 Crowd and Gartner peer reviews and all that kind of stuff is super important. And then really, as we get down to the bottom end of the funnel, it's really then how do we support growth? And like many organizations at Forte, part of our sales effort is also focused around account-based marketing. And we have a very defined group of accounts, about 300, that the sales organization are targeting. If we win a bunch of those, obviously, that gives us significant revenue uplift and continues to enhance our market awareness and positioning too. And then also, not only do we want to kind of win those customers, but we want to keep those customers happy and engaged. I'll talk a little bit about how that we're doing that as well, but we use like Friends of Forte as our community. I'll talk about that as a little bit as well. And as importantly, I often think about the work we do on two horizons. Right now, we're really supporting the products that we have in marketplace to help support revenue. But the other key area that we're also working very closely with the product team around is, hey, what are we doing in terms of innovation? What does our product lifecycle look like? And how do we get customer voices involved there? Because at the end of the day, the product development we're doing now is effectively revenue in 18 to 24 months. So that's my second horizon, which is supporting innovation that will drive revenue and differentiation further down the line. All right, so that's on a macro view. I'm just going to quickly show you each team in Forte has a single slide that represents what we do and what we deliver to the organization. I'm not going to spend a ton of time, but it really kind of hopefully gives you an understanding of how we're framed within the organization. So just in terms of summary, we grow and nurture the community of customers. We help raise their voices. And that is really designed to emphasize the impact of Forte in their own words. And I'll show you how we're doing that a little bit. And to help shape our roadmap and outlook for that future horizon of revenue in 24 months or so. In terms of my team's accountability, as I mentioned, we're two of us, so it's not a big team, but we launched in 2022 our own conference, Impact, and I'm going to use that as the case study in this presentation. We also have an advisory board, which is for that top tier of customers, our biggest customers, but also the ones who are most invested in what's going on in the marketplace and invest in the relationship with Forte. We also launched Friends of Forte, which is our online community. And we definitely see, as we look at 2023, that building that community into more ways, more value for the organization is a key driver. And as I mentioned, there's broader, more horizontal programs that are working as well to support the organization, whether that's product or sales, and obviously all marketing as well. Build that pipeline of advocates who are willing to come and participate with us at events, at workshops, and all these different ways to, again, amplify the journey that they're on, and again, by extension, the work that we're doing. So my OKRs this year, last 6 months have been bucketed into 3. I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking specifically about one, which is really around Impact, which is the first time that we launched a conference for Forte. So I'm going to spend a little time on that. But as you can see, community is big here. And then also showcasing our customer heroes in lots of different ways is also important through decision making. I'll talk a little bit about that as well. Cool. So Impact. Now, I'm sure many of you have got industry conferences that are way bigger than Forte's. we got a little bit of a delayed start to this because my CEO president came to me in 2019 and said, hey, David, we think now is the right time for us to do an industry conference. Sounds like a great plan, but obviously everybody took a 2-year hiatus with any form of online or in-person events through COVID. Online became king, and we felt, you know what, it's not the right time to do this. If we're going to do this, do it in person. The calendar clicked over to 2022, and I got a proverbial knock on the door from Israel saying, hey, now is the time for us to do our first conference. Now, what was interesting about this, we called it Impact. What was interesting about this is the president of the company said, look, I want to do this, but I don't want it to be a Forter conference. I want this to be for the people, by the people. And in fact, as we build the agenda, I want it to be all customer stories. So challenge accepted. And we ended up having the event in October. Here are some pictures of the actual event. We had about 125 customers and partners in the room out of a full day session. The CEO and president got 20 minutes to talk about Forter. The rest were all use-based panels and sessions driven by customers. We had them moderated by partners. And I'm going to walk you through how we went about planning that and what the results are. So as you think about the work that you're doing in 2023, maybe this is a model that was also applicable to the work that you're thinking about too. So as Gal mentioned, I am a man of action, right? I want to be able to see the results of the work that I'm doing. And I think the challenge for many of us, we want to kind of get our hands dirty and get involved in actual activity. But this is a model that Megan Hewer, who was at Serious Decisions at the time in 2017, introduced. And I know, Luis, you were there at the time, so you can kind of either nod along or shake your head appropriately. But it really resonated with me because it's very simple. And what it is designed to do is to kind of really help you walk through, as you think about different programs, how do we best build a foundation and support the business in a way that makes sense to everyone? And at the end of the day, that we can show our impact, because at the end of the day, impact ultimately means impact on business results, and longer term helps you build the case for why customer marketing should be an integral part of the function, not only of marketing, but of the organization. So in this context, we're looking at Impact, the customer conference. I boiled it down very simplistically through the 4 stages. So readiness. For me, that was like, how do we make sure that before we even move to activity, that we're in best position to build something that has value to the market and that I can easily sell internally, but also, and more importantly, get customers on board and understanding the value. So clearly what we want to do is build a really strong agenda. We wanted to create that sense of not only do people want to come, but there's also an active, almost FOMO involved, right? They don't want to miss hearing these great speakers, these great leaders, industry leaders present their story. We also had to work through vendor selection. So some of the work that we did to make sure on the back end that we had visible apps and various other things to make it easy for people to network, that was a lot of the work that we had to do with the events team. And then as importantly, we had to capture the organization's imagination. We established an executive steering committee for Impact. We also worked extensively for 6 months out in making sure that we were qualifying the registration list, that we were getting the right folks from sales and the customer success team engaged as well. And that they were helping us amplify that story of Impact and what it was meant to do back into the marketplace. What we also wanted to do though as well is we wanted to focus on how do we maximize this from a marketing perspective, an awareness perspective, because this was our first conference. We wanted to actually establish a track record that would give us legitimacy and also permission that this wasn't a one-off event, that we would then go and build conferences in 2022, 2023, 2024, etc. as well. So part of the activity we did was really about thinking through what are some of the key elements that we want to include. So it won't surprise people on this call that stuff like we wanted to make sure that we were finding ways to capture customer stories when they're on site. We were also looking at ways that we could augment the work by launching our own community. We wanted to take that physical event and actually use that to do a proof of concept around our online community, as I just mentioned. And then obviously in terms of output, we wanted to tie this back to the business. And for us, that really comes back to growth. So our North Star in marketing is all around influence pipeline. Now, that's something that the demand team and the growth teams are very focused on too. Regional teams are focused on very, very much as well. However, there is ways that we're also tracking when we think about those campaigns, when we think about those programs, what impact do customers have on each of those programs? And how do we then measure the associated influence pipeline with those programs as well? And as I mentioned, we're also looking at impact as a engine for future content. So videos, testimonials. We also did Vox Populi, man on the street interviews as well, to kind of give us an understanding of some of the big trends that these attendees were looking at in 2023. That would then also help to influence our PR strategy and also our overall comm strategy too. The other thing we did as well, we had the product teams come in. They spent time in effectively a lab showing customers what we planned for next year, in getting more feedback again, and that whole idea of innovation and product lifecycle management, in getting a better understanding of what was top of mind, and also identifying potential upsell and cross-sell too. And then the final thing, which is the top of this, obviously, is then the impact. So it's great that we've got all the activity in place. It's great that we're understanding what some of the results of actions are, but at the end of the day, how are we influencing revenue, and how are we effectively supporting that growth machine for the organization? So I'm not seeing it. Oh, I'm seeing a couple of questions. I don't know if we've got any questions, Gal, in the chat that I need to answer right now. Otherwise, I'll keep going.
No. David, it's just me providing some color about the metric spectrum as how you were describing it. So just kind of like amping you up a little bit more, sir. Well done on that.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I can give you where we're at right now. This is actually kind of like 30-day, like 45-day out from the actual event. And as I think we think about impact, sometimes it's really hard to document, right? And we're on to different programs. But one of the things that I've really focused on is going back to the various stakeholders, whether it's the content team or the product team or the regional teams, and saying, hey, we just did impact. Here is our model. It helped me make the case for why we should be doing this more in the future, right? So it's been really helpful as we've like looked at the results in terms of readiness, right? We onboarded Base and worked very closely with Gal to launch Friends of Forte. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more as well. We also developed a very clear recruitment strategy so that as we had 3 or 4 marquee speakers signed up, we then use those as evidence, as proof that we're getting great traction. We use those specific customers to then go and recruit the next wave of customers on topics that we really knew that the industry would care about. And so again, amplified that as well. And that we actually held multiple enablement sessions with sales and CS so that they not only understood the story, but they could get excited by the progress that was being made. And we could do shout outs as well for different team members, etc. too. At the end of the day, our target was for about 150 registrants. We got 180. We ended up with about 125 attendees, which in the post-COVID age is not bad at all. And we ended up with 20 customers presenting. And my target was like, okay, great. If we think about customer base, we've got a whole bunch that are blue chip customers. Let's get at least 3 or 4. We ended up with 10. We ended up with likes of Adidas and Hilton and various other MasterCard on stage talking about the industry. Not necessarily promoting Forte. There were no presentations in the conference, but more talking about the industry and by extension, the work that we're doing by Forte. And as mentioned, we also launched Friends of Forte. And then as we think about kind of the output and impact, we're tracking already. We've got more than $25 million in influenced pipeline. Again, that's tied back through Salesforce, so we can track that attribution. And as importantly, the different stages that pipeline is at as well as it continues to progress. The sales team were also able to look up more than 50 meetings as a result of impact. And from a content perspective, we actually got 7 testimonial videos, including a couple of our big brands that I honestly didn't think were going to be willing to go on film. They have. We've already started to publish. So if you look at our LinkedIn feed, you'll see the likes of PacSun and Total Wine videos coming out of that. And we've got a couple of other profiles coming out as well. And that gave us a great bump during the conference for social media and various other things too. And then ultimately impact, and this is after 30 days, there's already more than $1 million in influence revenue that we can tie back to impact, and more than $2 million in net new opportunities created within 30 days. So that sort of data is super important because obviously from putting on an event perspective, events aren't cheap. We spent a lot of money, but we're already starting to see that it's priming the pump, not only for closing business this year, which is super important, but as importantly for building that pipeline for growth in 2023. So that's kind of a model, and I use this quite a lot. You know, again, think about Friends of Forta this way. Some of the work that I'll show you around our customer advisory board, we apply this model to the different programs. It really helps to make sure that we're tying back to the business and also understanding how we're delivering value for our partners involved in that too. So as we think about 2023, some of the areas that we're going to be investing in, and again, thinking about it through those two lenses of relationships and revenue. For those of you who are familiar with Base, this is our Base community. We did a soft launch at Impact, and we actually did a global rollout last week. I think we're up to about 80 members already, working very closely with the CS team right now to continue to build that momentum. I know Luis is going to show you a much more mature program than we've got, but we're super excited that we're already seeing great traction. We've already 100 asks completed and about 27 or 28 acts of advocacy in the first week, including video testimonials, people signing up for events. So this has been a really great way for us to initially take some pressure off CS and sales, because we're actually finding advocates who are hand raising. And many of these folks are from some of our biggest customers as well. So it's great to be able to unearth these advocates. Phase one is very much on the gamification side, so acts of advocacy. But in January, we are going to be launching more of a discussion board forum capability as well, which will be supported by product marketing and the product team. We're super excited about that because that will also allow us to create more of a community feel too. So building community is going to be huge from a relationships perspective. We're also supporting revenue, right? So I mentioned the work that we're doing in building that pipeline of advocates. We are working super closely with the regional teams to support demand. So the three areas really around mobilizing advocates for trade shows and not just doing dinners, but doing workshops and content-rich experiences to drive that network and education. Obviously, content's going to be super important. So case studies, videos, we've got a very strong pipeline for 2023 too. And then as importantly, supporting sales through reviews, references, dedicated content, more stories. That's kind of the real focus in terms of supporting revenue there. In terms of combining revenues and relationships, Impact 2023 was signed off about 3 weeks ago, so we're already planning for October. The good news is we've had so much positive input from customers that we'll be building a steering committee, which will be based on customers and some of our other key stakeholders. But again, to make sure that we stay focused on the value for the community, by the community effectively as well. This is the Forta team, and I'm sure you like the Natty Letterman jackets as well. They've been super popular internally. We've also been building a program.
David, we need to end shortly, and we also have one question for you when you end.
Yeah, so 2 seconds. So we also launched Decision Makers, which is a higher end program to showcase our top customers. So we just rolled this out about 2 or 3 months ago. Think almost like what Salesforce did with Trailblazers. We're starting on that journey as well. So that's something, again, that's a really nice way to amplify advocate stories. And then the other thing I would say that's been super valuable in terms of relationship revenue is actually looking at our customer base, and this is from the customer advisory board, to generate content that's based on thought leadership that can then be used back into the community, but also for demand generation, top of the funnel awareness stuff, digital marketing, but then also supporting workshops and various other things as well. So those are my kind of key focuses for next year, and that's it.
Great, thank you, David. We're opening it for questions if anybody has any. I see one from Sadaf. Hi, Sadaf. So David, she's asking, is your advocacy platform integrated with community platform, or does your advocacy platform, i.e. Base, become a community?
Yeah, so we decided not to go a standalone community platform. We decided to use Base as a combination of gamification and also community. So I think it's okay to say, I mean, I know you've got an integration with Tribe, so that's what we're working on right now.
Any other questions for David before we go on? Okay, so I'm gonna launch a poll, but ignore that and let's let Luis rock and roll. If you have questions for David, you can put them in the Q&A as we go, no problem.
Cool. You guys can hear me, right? Thumbs up. Yep. Okay, great. Let me, I've got multiple screens here, so I'm trying to figure out which one I'm gonna share. Give me one sec. I'm gonna pop this in here and then move this guy over. Okay, can you guys see that? Awesome.
Yes.
All right, cool. Let me move this guy over here. All right, great. Cool. So, hey, everyone, excited to be on this chat. Like Gal mentioned, David and I did deliver a similar talk to what we're going to discuss here today a few weeks back in Boston. My name is Luis Gonzalez. I lead global customer advocacy at Alteryx. I've been with the organization for close to 3 years now. I do know Gal now for almost, what, is it 4 years now, Gal? It's been some time. Yeah, going to talk a little bit about how we are fortifying customer marketing and advocacy with a little bit of a unique twist. And I'm excited today to kind of announce a new way forward of how we're doing things in 2023. So that's a little bit about me. This is a little bit about Alteryx. So Alteryx is the leading analytics automation platform. We've got over 8,300 customers with a pretty big footprint within the Global 2000 and Fortune 500 index. Our community is an award-winning community. They're up for another award this year as well, with over 320,000 members, and we are actively marching towards the 1 million member mark. So we've got a pretty lofty goal in trying to make that happen. As you can see from the middle image, our analytics enable transformative outcomes. That's one of my passion projects is showcasing some of these extremely prominent brands and showcasing not only the output of analytics and how it drives impact to their business, but in between weaving in the human story. We are trusted by the world's most influential brands. As you can see here, Delta Airlines is the logo that we were able to showcase this year. So we are inside of 7 out of the 10 largest airlines in the world. 10 out of the 10 top CPG companies, consumer packaged goods, pretty much the largest organizations in the world are using Alteryx in some way, shape, or form. And we're showing that they are leveraging analytics through power, through recessions, through uncertain times. The story with Delta Airlines is literally that. During the COVID pandemic, they kind of shut down a lot of their processes because the airline industry was suffering, but they ended up using Alteryx to kind of future-proof their business. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit today is at the highest level, how do we align programs, show impact the way that David was showcasing, literally at the point of sitting in with executives, listening to their plans, and then aligning your programs towards that. And I have a tangible example that I like to share, which is from our most recent Q3 earnings call. So if you take a peek at the slide on the left, it's showcasing both our ARR revenue and net expansion. And so what we like to showcase is that we are completely aligned to that strategy. So what our president and CRO cares about is not only expanding the footprint of our presence within the Global 2000 and Fortune 500 index of companies. Well, guess what? So do we. So the way that David displayed the metric spectrum, that readiness metric is how ready are we to execute on the goals that the company cares about. And in order to do that, we have to actively recruit advocates from organizations hailing from the Fortune 500 and Global 2000 index. So we're proud to say that we're at a 63% mark of members of our advocacy program, which is 800 plus, hail from Fortune 500 and Global 2000 organizations. So every day when those advocacy activities are occurring, more often than not, they're coming from organizations within that index. So not only is Alteryx saying to the market, we are present in those large organizations, but here's the proof as well, right? Via customer advocacy assets like webinars, quotes, reviews, and the almighty case study. In terms of the revenue,
also one question that I think David is also answering in the Q&A, but somebody asked, like, how do you choose your customers for the program? So you're basically saying you're trying to align the choice with what the company is focusing on in the sense of, in this case, for example, Fortune 500 or G2K companies, correct?
100%. It's literally our first metric that we track. It's our readiness metric. You know, not only is it growth of the program in terms of membership, but it's also the quality of advocacy members that we have. And tactically speaking, because I'm very much about, well, how do we actually do that? The way that we did it this year was we actually went and aligned with our VP of customer success, especially the strategic side. And our global CSM team was actually MBO'd on nominating some of their best clients into the advocacy program. And so we received over 230 nominations in Q2 alone. And the Delta Airlines case study was one of the outputs from that nomination process. And so it's important to align, right? One of the things I did in 2020 and 2021 was just march alongside with our customer success folks and make sure that they understood what we do and that we understood what they did, and just kind of, you know, spearheaded that effort together. So it's one of our first metrics that we track. Is not only is it growth, but it's impactful growth, right? We're doing it with those kinds of customer nominations. Look at ARR and revenue. Clearly, every organization cares about that, right? So David spoke about that level of influence. Well, we're actually tracking a little bit different now. Is not only do we see that we're impacting revenue, but we're showcasing the impact to an executive. Sure, we're helping close deals, and sure, we're helping with marketing influence pipeline and some closed ACV, but what's the impact? And what we're showing is that when we have advocates who are helping reference calls, the deal size balloons to 495% higher than the Alteryx average deal size. And accounts that have advocates in it are actually growing 10x, or they're spending 10x more with us and staying with us 60% longer than accounts without advocates. So those kinds of metrics showcase to an executive, okay, this is working, and let's continue to invest more. So, you know, I'd move away from some of the tactical things, like how many case studies you produce, third-party review site badges and stuff like that. That stuff is important, but if you really want to get budget and headcount, you've got to tell the story in that light. And the way we do it is really just planning process starts towards Q3 of the year, and it all starts with aligning to the overall integrated campaigns. We tend to fall into a trap of tactics, right? Fulfill this webinar. We need case studies, we need quotes, we need reviews. But if you push back on the business and say, we're actually a program that's aligned to the overall global integrated campaigns, and what you're asking for, it doesn't fall into that, then you become a more strategic and respected function. So we start our planning process by aligning to integrated campaigns and understanding which are the 4 or 5 major campaigns that we're going to be supporting. That doesn't mean that you're not going to fall into those tactical asks. They do happen, but more often than not, you've got a strong vision and plan ahead to go with integrated campaigns. And then you start meeting with those cascading stakeholders, right? Everything trickles down: social media, AR, demand, product marketing, et cetera. And then we held a customer marketing and advocacy team offsite where we actually, which was great. It's the first thing we've ever done this was we were in Alteryx HQ, and we actually invited leadership from customer success to come in, and we planned together. We whiteboarded together how we were going to grow hand in hand, because it is important, right? Customer success, in my opinion, are the folks who are planting the seeds that turn into the advocates, which are the fruits that we pick for all the great things that we do together. And then we set those programmatic goals and establish some readiness and OKRs, right? So the readiness metric is something that I'll talk about in a second here. I do feel strongly about this. Everyone on this call, audience members, David and I and Gal, we're the ones who are bearing the flag of our functional future. You know, we're facing some headwinds, every organization is, and if we want to continue to grow and get some headcount, we're going to have to be the flag bearers. And so kind of parallel to what David is talking about and how he's viewing 2023, for us, this is the vision, right? So it's one holistic program. We're in the middle. Those 3 folks are advocates of ours, right? So we're going to be helping our major global event, which is Inspire. So to David's point with impact, a lot of customer-driven activities here. Our communications are going to be completely holistic and more driven towards a persona. there's a huge push for our partnership ecosystem at Alteryx. So what we're doing is we're showcasing joint Alteryx customers and how they're working with some of our partners. So the Snowflake logo is there, right? So we've been producing panels, case studies for not only the market, but our investors as well. So they see not only are we partners, but we're proving that we have the assets and the results with it. Everything else around here, so blog, video, automated third-party reviews, I'll get to that in a second, is fully integrated. So I kind of liken our program to a nerve cell, where we're just kind of the middle, and then we spread our tentacles all over the place, and we're working holistically in alignment with multiple functions. There is no silver bullet KPI, in my opinion. I think that demand marketers were able to kind of have a claim to fame with the almighty marketing qualified lead. And I feel like customer marketing and advocacy practitioners have been searching for that one metric that's going to propel us to fame. And I've been seeing this march now for a few years, and I just don't think it exists. I think what exists is that we are a function that works with some of our best and brightest customers. And in order to do that, you've got to have a holistic set of KPIs and metrics that you can deliver to the business that means something to the business. So it's not just one, in my opinion, which is why I'm such a big fan of the metric spectrum. Let me not skip that. And one of the major plays that we're going to continue to grow is dynamic storytelling. So I kind of put in the slide here, death of the case study ? Because we're seeing at Alteryx, one of our most successful campaigns is what we call all in. And at the time, we didn't know what we were doing. We filmed some of our customers at our Inspire event, which, pro tip, if you have a major company conference, film your customers at the conference. There's a different energy, there's a different charisma that they bring to those recordings, instead of doing it the old school way, which is kind of, having them in their office or you having them at your office. At a conference, there is an energy that is palpable. And in my strong opinion, I think that's what made this all-in campaign super successful. So not only that, these folks are talking about getting promoted because of Alteryx, getting time back with their families. So giving a little bit of that human touch as well, and then proliferate it, right? So we've done a lot of work with social media, with catchy, energetic, and cheeky captions. So our brand is transforming to not only more of a human brand, but also making it younger, right? And so this is something that the market is responding to very well. If I could have shared the sound, I've got these Bluetooth headsets. I could have played these videos, and you could have heard Jamie talk really quickly about how it's changed her life. But I'll send the link, and you guys can go into the all-in landing page. So the advocacy measurement methodology, this is exactly what David was talking about. I'll break it down in a way where the metric spectrum is, and I put this in the chat, it's very much a clay. You can really mold it to however you want, and what matters to your business, right? Again, there isn't a silver bullet of metrics that I believe in. It's really more what matters to you and your organization. So it all starts with readiness. What is your ability to accomplish the goals that you set? So you can work backwards and say, these are the things I want to help drive, or these are the things that the business cares about. Well, how ready am I to achieve these things? And as you can see here, for us, it's, of course, number of advocates, but more importantly, where are they coming from? And for us, it's Fortune 500 and Global 2000, as well as the personas. And then it dives, and then from there, it trickles down. What kinds of activities do we want to drive? What are the outputs that we want to showcase? And more importantly, the impact, the effect on the business goals, that you can comfortably and confidently go to your chief marketing officer and say, in our case, Keith, hey, Keith, this is exactly what we're doing. And for him to kind of put a stamp on approval on our measurement framework is a big deal. So again, this is something that we will provide to you all, the actual research piece, but it's really up to translation of how you measure that. Now, for us, advocacy impact moving forward is really showcasing account growth. A little bit of NRR is involved here, but really showcasing to the business that accounts with advocates in them are staying with us longer, 60% longer to be exact, and they're spending 10x more. And there's reasons for that. So I've got this slide here which showcases some of the notable growth that we have with some of our top advocates from these organizations this year alone. In fact, just yesterday, the CUNA Mutual Group number is definitely going to balloon due to one of our top advocates and his business there. But we're showcasing this back to not only our marketing, our brand teams, but more importantly, our sales teams. And showcasing this slide allows them to buy in to what I'm about to introduce here, which is what I'm calling advocate account-based marketing. This is the what was called the old house ABM model. My issue with ABM traditionally is that a lot of the account planning was done internally, right? So you would have some field marketers, you'd have some sales folks talking about some of the insights that the sales folks have and CSMs have gathered from their accounts. But rarely did we actually bring an advocate, or at least I've not seen it, where you bring an advocate into the planning session. You actually say, hey, this is what we want to do together, right? And I've got real examples of that. I mean, if you look at one of our accounts that I can talk about, let's say it's one of the largest mobile carriers in the US. They have actively come to us and said, we believe in Alteryx to be the enterprise analytics platform here. And we want to be able to work with you to proliferate the platform across different functions. So there's your program objective, right? What's the vision? What are the tactics? How are we going to do this? What's going to be the initial vehicle that's going to allow us to do that? And so through the advocacy program, we're actually funding a polished video with B-roll, with their results, with their own lexicon that they're going to take and shop around different functions. So instead of producing an externally facing case study or video, we're actually investing in creating things with them so that that is used internally to grow the account. So all of that alignment with account teams, with field marketing and advocacy ladders up all the way up to prioritization, planning, and the execution part. So if you look at planning, right, that the fourth bullet down, the inventory and content, that's what's going to drive this level of account growth. We've done it all year with different organizations, and that's what we were able to show those results in the previous slide. But this advocate account-based marketing model is what we're going with going forward to 2023. We're going to start with about 10 to 15 globally facing accounts, and we're getting buy-in from sales because when we show them the results, they actively say, yeah, I mean, I've got some insights, but when you've got an internally facing customer advocate that wants to do the same and showcases his or her plans with us, now you've got something that other members of the organization can align with because you're using their language, right? And so all of this is propelled with insider insights. It's all driven by our advocates. It's far stronger than kind of doing it on our own with Salesforce data or notes taken on a scratch pad. This is the advocate account-based marketing charter that I will be delivering to those 10 to 15 accounts that I work with throughout the year. This is all mumbo jumbo. It's not real in terms of what you're reading, but it's what it's going to look like so that when we're working with that advocate or advocates from that mobile carrier, that individual is helping us write the opportunity statement, the program vision, the scope, the key activities, who the team members we should go and work with, right? It's all done with them so that it's a lot stronger, more impactful.
Luis,
that's what we're,
yeah. So basically this is ABM or advocacy account-based marketing to expand within an existing strategic account, correct? So it's not ABM to bring in a new customer, but it's to bring in more divisions from that mobile carrier or more users, more. Yeah, so expansion, upsell, cross-sell, leveraging.
That's exactly right. Exactly, right. And so how do we get to this point, right, to where you're thinking about this level of customer marketing and advocacy? You have to do it by automating some of the tactical things and to be able to achieve the strategic. And this is where I'm going to give a big shout out. I mean, I know we're on a base webinar here and I am a base customer, but huge shout out to the base platform, because if I were to share my screen on my G2 platform, I can show you the badges that Alteryx had winter of 2021, which is exactly to today's date. The winter 2021 badges are given out in December. We just received the winter 23, winter 22, the winter 23 ones yesterday. We had 4 category leadership badges. We turned on base in February of 2022. So within the next round was spring of 2022. It almost tripled in terms of badges. And then it's gone up even further to the point where our brand cannot showcase all of the badges in one post. So we have to get crafty and created this GIF. The 2023 winter badges now, it's the most we've ever gotten. So we've gotten 22 leadership badges. We were also the only organization within data analytics and BI to receive the Trust Radius Best Software 2022 badge. 128 organizations received that. Alteryx was the only one in BI and data analytics. I credit Base for this because I literally do not think about reviews anymore. I don't. I have a new hire that I'm onboarding, and she was asking me yesterday what our tactics and strategy are. And I said, I already set it up. It's in Base. It's turned on. I don't think about it anymore. The awards just roll in. So automating that was huge. And then David talked about user-generated content. That was another vision of mine with Base. The 2 examples you see below are literally from one evergreen ask that we call "What's Your Story?" It lives inside of the portal. Advocates go in, they give us basically a framework skeleton, a lot of detail, a little bit of detail on what they want to talk about, and then we contact them and we make it a polished case study. So Armor Express was the very first one. And then the next one that's coming out, there's a few in pipe, but the next one was probably one of my most proudest moments of vision coming to fruition. JP Morgan Chase came through Base. It came through one of our advocates there, and getting the rights to that logo, pretty darn near impossible if you're a customer marketing advocate practitioner. You know how hard it is to get those kinds of logos. It came through Base. So if you can start automating some of those things, that you stop chasing some of these tactical things. They're strategic, but the act of getting them are tactical. You can then focus on some of those, growing, expansion, NRR, upsell, cross-sell things with sales and other functions. So I'll stop there. That's a little bit of what we're doing and how we're driving impact internally at Alteryx. And got to give Base a big shout out for all the work that we've done together. The platform has only been on since February of this year. So happy to answer any questions on that.
Thank you so much, Luis, and thank you for the shout out. I appreciate it. We have one question, and I know people are going to drop in 2 minutes. So first of all, if somebody doesn't stay to the answer, thank you all for joining us. We'll share the recording. We'll share that framework that Luis mentioned, and enjoy your holidays. We'll see you on the other side of the year, I guess. So Sadak was asking, how many people do you have on your advocacy team? Who drives this Advocate ABM program? Are you PMing it, or is the CSM leading it? How do you do the execution of that, or how do you plan to do it? Because it's a new thing.
Yeah. So Daf, thanks for the question. As it stands right now, for the solely advocacy function, it's a team of 3. It's myself and my 2 direct reports. One is based on the West Coast, one is based in the UK. And then I do have someone in Singapore that's more of a dotted line, but we are trying to grow the footprint in APJ as well. To answer your question about advocate account-based marketing, yes, that is kind of my brainchild right now. And we are actively recruiting some of the strategic account reps with CSMs to start in this program and providing them that charter that I just showed. So yeah, leading that.
I can see that being a headcount though, right? I mean, because each one of those, I mean, I recognize that model as well, Luis, from Bob Peterson, but building one of those takes a lot of work, right? And so, I think trying to do 4 or 5 yourself would be a Herculean task. So I know, you can imagine it being headcount.
Yeah, we're being audacious, and I know that with 10, 15, we'll see if it works, but we might scale it back, depending on how much. It really depends on how involved your account reps are, right? And so for us, there is definitely involvement, especially some of those who are focused on value selling, because this hinges on that. But yeah, we're gonna give it a shot, man, and see how it works.
Cool.
Thank you so much, David and Luis, for sharing this with everybody, sharing your programs. I think it's a lot of value here. And again, we're going to share this also with others. Appreciate you taking also the time towards the end of the quarter, the end of the year. for everybody joining us again, thank you so much for coming in. If you have more questions, I think that David and Luis are pretty open to answer them. So I recommend you connect them on LinkedIn or, reach out. And I think they are strategic and super thoughtful about their programs and always happy to help. So I definitely recommend that direct connection within the community.
And you can share my slides, Gal, right? So those slides that are in there, I don't know if Luis as well, but you can share my slides.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I've got to pass those over, but thanks, guys.
Amazing. Thank you. Enjoy your holidays and goodbye.
Cool.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.